We are here today, Moran Taimovitz and myself. Hi, Moran.
Hello.
And we have prepared, because we think we have something to say about love and relationships.
Yes.
And we have,
I want to go back to the previous topic just to get started
yeah.
because we talked about coincidences and signs.
Oh, yeah.
And last week, when you asked me if we want to change the topic to love and relationships, it was another coincidence that happened in the same week because I was reading a book about Buddhist loving kindness meditation, which was not part of the book. It was like inserted in some places. Then I had a shamanic class with a teacher from the Scandinavian traditions, and it was supposed to be about rune magic, but he only talked about the heart, Lis-
Ah,
listening to intuition in your heart as this connection to the source. And then I met with a Tibetan doctor that said something about my heart rate is a little bit slower than what it should be. And I asked him what type of meditation I should do for sleeping issues. And he told me that I should do bodhicitta meditation, which is a combination of loving kindness and emptiness in the Tibetan tradition. So all of these different things came around the heart, around love, around practices that are basically generating love. And in the last few days, when I actually started, and you asked me, "Hey, do I want to change the topic?" I said, "Of course, of course. This is exactly what I'm doing."
yeah. We had this conversation about doing a video. Maybe we want to do it in future about coincidences, synchronicities, things that you can't explain. And then I had this feeling like, actually, I think I like to talk about love.
So it's a crazy coincidence that everything last week conditioned me to this, and then
Hmm.
I started practicing it, which is it's a type of Buddhist practice that I know of, but I never practice.
Hmm. Hmm.
And now when we talk after a few days of love, I can have a totally different story for you.
Having on the last months is when I have been thinking more about it, not just feeling, but thinking and considering that one thing is loving someone and another is being able to feel love. And it can come together. But many times, if you cannot allow yourself those feelings in yourself, or you feel there's something wrong about feeling that, or there's any other trigger from your life that is not going to let you feel love at ease, um, there is where it manifests outside, and many of the problems that we could have with partners, with lovers, with boyfriends, girlfriends, and other people actually happen. But in general, we are not being taught as a society to stop and notice what you feel in your body.
Yeah.
And then everything about the state of love started with this, with what is it? What is it that we feel? How can we promote it? How is it good for you to just center yourself into feeling love? How does it benefit you? That sounds very practical, but I am practical. How do you approach that?
When I was a teenager, I had lots of philosophical ideas because of it sounds very Buddhist, everything I say today. I had lots of social issues as a teenager, like fitting with a group of friends and changing friends and moving from schools and nothing crazy, nothing traumatic, but it preoccupied me a lot. And in some way, I came to the conclusion that love is the opposite of fear and not the opposite of hate. And it stuck with me for a long time. And I also read it in a book somewhere that the author came to the same conclusion that love is a sense of trust and not just necessarily a feeling that we talk about in our culture. It's a sense of trust in the universe, trust in the cosmos and the planet, and being open to receive whatever comes to you because you trust that it is for your benefit. And in religious aspect, we can say that, you know, we trust in God because everything that God creates is for human benefit. And then the skeptics and the atheists and the agnostics, they say, wait, but why did God create war? Why did God create famine, droughts, disasters? And when I thought about this like love not as a feeling, which it can be, but what is more philosophical, it means that, let's talk about God for a second. If God created the lion and the zebra, and God loves the lion and the zebra equally, then God has to allow the lion to eat the zebra sometimes, and the zebra to escape from the lion sometimes. Because he loves them equally, he allows freedom. And then whatever happens between the lion and the zebra, it's natural. We say it's a natural thing, because this is how the animal kingdom works. But then we talk about humans, suddenly we have some reservations, like, why did these people kill that people? Why this person raped that person? Why this politician was corrupt? And then we start to blame it on God or the universe or karma, that things happen because they shouldn't happen. But if we really have this sense of this universe, this planet, this life is a loving life, and love means allowing things to happen as they are, let them grow, let them evolve, allow them to experience their own life, then people will create shitty situations for themselves. Me as a parent, if two of my kids are fighting each other, I can't always be the judge and say, you started, you give up, you give up. Sometimes I have to let them fight and figure it out on their own. So because I love them, I let them hurt each other, right? Because they have free will and they are in relation to each other. But as a triangle of me as a parent and two kids that I love equally, they create a situation of suffering and hate for each other. And as in like indifferent, loving, you know, they say like the sun is always shining on everybody the same way. I will allow a situation of being hurt. And then it comes to your question of how do we feel it in the body? And this, you know, this I'm not an expert on, but I think when you have a philosophical understanding of even when I feel hurt, even when I feel betrayed, even when I feel triggered by something or even traumatized by something, if it's still in some way you can still conceptualize that the universe or God or karma is loving, then you can trust the pain is also okay.
That's an interesting coincidence when you're talking about God, because I was designing some the Mediterranean cards and something that is going to launch, but it's not there yet. And I was focused on that. But at the same time, it happened in my life. I had a breakup of a relationship that didn't last very long. It was initiated by myself and for love, not for hate, not for problems with the other person directly as such. So that's very difficult to do because I think I had other breakups in my life and it's easier to break when things have gone really horrible between the two, when there have been years of deterioration. But when that has not been the case, it makes it, I mean, you can be hooked into that. So first to start, I do it for love of myself. Of course, you do it also with the feelings for the other person have not disappeared, not because you think this is not the right thing, your feelings disappear. During grief, normally, and I do like to study the neuroscience of this, this bonding system starts to kill, let's say, that oxytocin bonds or that hormonal bonds that we have associated with the other person. But in my case, it didn't. I felt like time was passing and I was feeling the same amount of love. So it was very interesting because it was like, wow, what is this? It's like that love doesn't go anywhere because I have it. It's with me. So at the beginning, I could feel the love and grief, and I experienced what I call the alchemy of that situation, is that you put different ingredients and you alchemize. In this case, can be with love or can be with the grief at the same time. And that's what produced was my interest in studying what is this. So given that I was still feeling the love, what I felt was an expansion, that I could keep that sensation with me, and I was carrying that everywhere, and it wasn't going anywhere. And what do I do with it? Can I add other people activate it? Because obviously I started to recognize as pleasurable. I started to recognize as something that I want with me. But these different traditions call it in a different way, because I did call it a state of love.
Yeah.
But now I'm reading a book, and this is what's the book?
So
Other people will call it source.
yes.
Other people will call it different things. I'm reading this. This is the practice of the presence of God.
Mm-hmm.
And this was done by a monk called Brother Lawrence. And Brother Lawrence was talking about how you feel. It doesn't say in your body, but the presence of love in normal daily life, while you're cooking, while you're doing other things, which reminds me a lot to Santa Teresa de Avila, saying God is also in the kitchen, it's also between the pots, it's also in the small things. So when I read these, I extract to myself that's the kind of feeling that they're defining, and they're calling it God.
A lot of traditions eventually say that God is love, and it's very abstract. It happened to me in a psychedelic session, actually, that I was not prepared for, and I didn't think I took enough, maybe, to experience something. But I had a sense. I was launched into this kind of dimension where you can feel this immense love and feeling home that I cannot really express in other words, just feeling at home finally, but remember that you already know this feeling, and you kind of remember that you know this place because you came from there, and then in the same time that you're not really separate from there, but it's very hard to feel it day-to-day life in our bodies and modern life. So I did have an experience like this, but I also had the opposite. Like you say, in brain plasticity, when two people are aligning with each other after some maybe weeks or months of dating and relationship, then your brain synapses and neurons are wiring for the same experience, and the language and the touch and the smell and all the senses and the sound of their voice. So when you break up, according to that book about brain plasticity, it can take up to 2 years.
Wow.
Of the neurons separating, slowly unbundling, like you said. And I experienced that when I was in high school. It was very painful. It was like I could actually feel like my brain was hurting from this process of unbundling, or something was missing there physically. And it hurt because it's like you're being attached to somebody, and then they cut it out, and then you still have this wound to heal, right? But in a more psychological sense,
the phantom
member. It was like a phantom member of myself, just a person, right? But I also, and it was a very hard breakup, because it was a breakup that continued for many years of coming back. Yes, coming back together, breaking up again, coming back to maybe over 8 years, I think. And eventually the last ultimate breakup was exactly like you said. Like, you realize that you love this person so much, but it doesn't work because of our personalities, because of our triggers, because of our needs, but because of love, or because in I will use the Buddhist term for compassion, because you care about this other human being so much, and you realize that for them to be happy, they can't be with you. And for you to be happy, you can't be with them. Then this line between love, compassion, and caring for somebody else's happiness is, in Buddhism, it's all together. It's all the same thing. In our language, we have different words, but So you do the most honorable thing to break up with them so they can be free to be happy, you can be free to be happy, and it doesn't contradict the reason that you do it because you love them.
Yeah.
But you don't love them from an ego perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to have them for
Yeah,
yourself.
exactly.
And it's super hard. It's super hard to do.
It is. Yeah. But don't you see, I mean, when you say 2 years, it's because I think the unbonding takes longer in some situations, depending on the depth or intensity of what the bond was, plus the nervous system of the person who is doing it.
It's because there is no reward. There's no oxytocin, there's no dopamine, there's
Yeah.
nothing serotonin to create. When the neurons are created, there is some hormone response
Yeah.
reward to creating it. But to unbundle it, there's no reward, it's just pain.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, they go on rebounds with other people, they start.
Many times, other people, what they do is immediately find another one to cover it up. And
Which
it doesn't work on another one. Yeah.
It's a strategy because then if you create new connections,
Yeah.
then it's easier to dismantle the other connections, but it doesn't mean that you still have to dismantle the other ones. It just creates new connection. It's a strategy. It's not a useful strategy, but it works. It works because your attention is on something else that makes you happy. So your brain will rewire for that. And then you won't feel the pain of the other thing, but the other thing still has to happen.
If you don't go through that process, even if you have another person, it might come, we don't know how long later, but eventually it emerges. It's just different attitudes to it. Is that I want to stop it because I want to stop it. I want to bond immediately with someone, but that pain is there.
But
Or
then
not, or I go.
it's like loving two people in the same time. It's very hard. You're starting with somebody, but you didn't finish with the other ghost of the other one. You're always going to compare them. You're always going to contrast them, and it's super hard if you don't have a gap between some buffer of integration and healing. I tried that. I've done that. It doesn't work. It's useful to feel good about yourself for a few days, but it doesn't help to relieve the pain until the pain, like you said, the pain will naturally disappear one day or another in a natural cycle. And this is, from shamanic worldview and Buddhist worldview, like more Taoistic worldviews, like you cannot escape winter.
Yeah.
Winter will come,
Yeah.
and you will still have to sit there for a few months cold, no matter how long you're trying to escape it. So winter will come, you will feel shitty, you will be cold, but then spring will come, and you have to let the cycle run, or else we get blocked and we get these patterns and stuck patterns within us because we don't let them run their natural course. But I wanted to say something else regarding to this book that you're holding. That this type of meditation that I started was exactly this, was how to generate a feeling of love in your body, not to wait.
Really?
Yeah, because
What a coincidence.
this is what this type of Buddhist meditation is doing. Is creating a sense of compassion. They don't use love in the same way that we use, and they have different words. But let's say we call it loving kindness, compassion.
A mix of loving kindness meditation and the compassion meditation.
Yes, because in certain Buddhist school, they look at it differently. So in the Tibetan school, that I'm not an expert in, but I know enough to try to explain it, is that when you reach this enlightenment state, when you reach this state of Buddhahood, where everything is one and you are one with everything, and you can feel everything, and you realize that you're not separate from anything, and that you is not really a you because it's not solid anymore. It's your identity and your being is intertwined and interconnected with everything else. Then what immediately arises is that you also feel everybody's pain and everybody's happiness because it's all connected. And as in the concept of bodhisattva in this Mahayana tradition, that is like Tibetan, Zen, Korean, Japanese, the prospect of becoming a bodhisattva means that you care about all the other beings, animals, plants, humans, whatever, so much because you feel everybody's suffering in the same time, that the only logical action to do is compassion. Because their pain is your pain, and when you help yourself, you help them, and you help them, you help yourself, because it's all connected. And it's very philosophical, but this meditation that they're practicing is to generate this feeling in your body. Maybe like the monk was writing about, so you can feel this love and compassion and caring in every little action that you're doing, so it manifests in this reality, in the kitchen, or when you go to the supermarket.
Oh, yes.
And then when you radiate this kind of every action is considerate of everything, as much as you can, considerate of every other aspect of life, then it reverberates in everybody else's, and you contribute to this loving essence, God essence, compassion essence, broadly from your actions and speech and thinking. And it's the first time I'm actually practicing it, and not just waiting to receive inspiration or waiting to receive some guidance or some, it's more generating it. And one of the things that they do is just wishing yourself well, wishing yourself all the best things that you wish, and then you start wishing it to your close circle of friends and family, and then wishing it to neutral people that maybe and then wishing it to your enemies, and then wishing it to, like, you radiate from inside outwards. And they have different techniques of using words or using mantras for this, or using a symbol of a sun that's starting in the middle of your chest and expanding to the entire universe, or using an image of something that you love, like your dog or your kid, and just trying to wash yourself with this sensation. So there's many techniques.
I like when you were saying, mentioning that this happens in different religions, because it's something I've been looking into, and I like finding it. Even if I say some people call it love, some people call it God, some people call it source, and I did find Sufism is one of the traditions that describe this quite clearer. Is with things like the movement of the universe. I got the quote here. The movement of the universe is the movement of love. Ibn Arabi, a thinker from I think it's 12th, 13th century. And St. John, that's the most popular one in the Bible, at least that I knew. At least I have been hearing this as a song when I was a kid. And this is, let me find here. Whoever who does not love does not know God, for God is love. And it is John 4:8. So, yes.
And then people say, but there's so much destruction, wars, crime, that they say, but somehow they blame God or they blame the universe, cosmos, karma, whatever they believe, they blame it, and they don't see that it's us humans creating this situation for each other. And this is why I like the Buddhist view so much, because it doesn't blame anything, because there's no one to blame. There's no God concept in Buddhism. It's just, this is how it works. If you create suffering for yourself as an individual, as a family, as a tribe, as a nation, as a country, you just create bad karma, you create negative situation, you will get counteractions, and there's nobody to blame. You're the only responsible person, or as a group, because this is how the laws of the universe works. If you use them correctly, you will have a heaven. If you use them wrongly, you will have a hell. And it's the same place. Just your mindset is creating it. And there's no, in Mahayana Buddhism, in Tibet and Zen, they say that this nirvana and samsara are the same place, are the same. It's just your mind is different. There's nothing to escape to. They don't believe in heaven and hell as like actual places. They're more states of suffering or states of mind that we create, and we don't suddenly born into another realm and everything is perfect, because perfect is relative, and relative means that it's not separated from another thing, and then we go back to the same spot, that nothing is separate. So if you feel bliss, or when maybe you know this better than I do in your research about the Mediterranean cultures, but right, Greek language has different words for love and platonic love,
agape and
and friendships and more like intoxicated when you are having a crush on somebody, that's more physical affection. So I think that we have these ups and downs because they are relational to each other. If I have a crush on somebody, I feel drawn to a person, so it's like a sense of high, that wow, this person is beautiful, I'm attracted to this person, I want to get to know them, I want to spend my days with them. But it's in a contrast of something else that is bad. We feel these peaks, this rush of also maybe serotonin and dopamine in our body, because it's a contrast of feeling pain and feeling sorrow and feeling miserable and depressed. So we need to have these two polarities, we need to have this dualism in our world, because then we can know the other polarity and the other extreme. And we tend in our society, maybe less in different ancient cultures, to attach to these things. Bad, is totally bad, is depression and anxiety and all this stuff and loneliness is only bad. Where if you talk with the monk about loneliness, he will say, loneliness is amazing. I'm one with God, I'm one with nature, I don't need other people. I think loneliness is great. But in our culture, we feel maybe loneliness is an epidemic. And then we are also attached to feeling love, like this rush of hormones and attraction and physical attraction and this excitement. And we also attach to that because we cannot feel it every day, all day long, unless we are on drugs. And then we are killing ourselves slowly. So I think what we are missing in our culture, and maybe we don't have the right words for it or the right tradition, culture reference, that there is a sense of love that is like a baseline, that is a benchmark.
Yes.
That is not extreme, that is not so much volatile.
But it's noticeable. I understand that when we do state of love, is something that takes you to a different state of your body. And it is possible to have it as baseline. And that's, I think, a fantastic key for many things. People who are anxious about finding love. I'm not going to find this. I'm not going to feel this again until I don't find it out there. But we can learn to notice that feeling, okay, maybe not here, but as a baseline with ourselves. Then we don't have that anxiety for finding anyone. We can want it, but it's our baseline. Another thing I notice is that when I activate that, my surroundings behave differently, and the people around me behave differently. Because we are animals, we perceive the state of the other person, we react to that. I don't have to say it, I am feeling a state of love. In the supermarket, that's a good testing place. You can see if people come and push you and you are not seen and you're physically not treated as you believe you deserve. But actually, you activate that and this kind of aura around you. There's something. And I do notice how people want to approach more. There's a different rhythm to everything when that happens.
This is a good example, because if you can trust that, let's say you go in a supermarket with your card and somebody bumps into you with your card with their card because they are rushing. Let's say they are rushing and they need to go home and prepare dinner, or the kid is waiting in the car, and they're not a bad person, but they bump into you. And if you are in this kind of more loving presence, then first it doesn't bother you so much that they get bumped into you, because okay, accidents happen. And then they don't get their anxiety met with another anxiety. So once you keep yourself loving, they actually can say, oh, sorry, and nobody will shout back, nobody will defend anything, and you're actually helping them.
I experience a lot of that. Yeah.
So you're helping them, even if you don't feel so nice about that, or maybe they do shout at you like, "Look where you're going! Look where mind your step." But by being lovingly present, you're helping them to experience this maybe millisecond of peace that, hey, it's okay. They can relax, they can go home relaxed because nothing escalated. And they don't have a story to tell, oh, this person in the supermarket was so obnoxious. So already they continue the day relaxed and nice. And I think it always goes back to this sense of trust and openness, because like you said, even if I'm not in a relationship right now and I wish to have a relationship, but I trust that it will come in the right moment, in the right time, in the right person, it's much better than holding this memory of my ex-girlfriend or having a fantasy of somebody that doesn't exist and being needy and radiating to the world that I'm needy and I'm a poor person. But this sense of trust that the world is spinning, the day comes after the night comes after the day, nothing like the rhythm of the seasons, the rhythm of the day and night, everything is happening in its course. If I can trust that I will wake up tomorrow, then I can trust that I will meet the right person at the right time. It's a long it's a long way to be fully trusting this, because the day and night revolves every day, but these cyclic motions of life is something that we kind of lost, I think, because ancient cultures were more about harvesting, planting. It was more agricultural. They worked with the seasons, with the equinox and the solstice. And we are more linear. So we can't trust that the summer will come back again, summer will come back again, summer will come back again, because we think that, oh, this person left me and we broke up and nothing will ever be the same, because we don't have this cyclical mindset anymore. And maybe your cards, maybe when you did the research for your cards, you found more about this kind of attitude.
I think that's another conversation, but one of the essential most salient differences between Mediterranean cultures and, let's say, the north of Europe is the sense of time. And I'm sure you can understand this well. The sense of time is different. So there's monochronic and polychronic sense of time. And then those who are monochronic, which is, for example, I'm in England, so people in the north is like punctuality. And if you arrive 2 minutes late, you say, I'm sorry, I'm late. If you do that in Spain, people are going to laugh at me if I say I'm sorry I'm late because I'm 2 minutes late. And monochronic are very efficient for tasks, for a number of things. And they are more, they have a sense of linear time. But other cultures, including Mediterranean cultures, or north of Africa and south of Europe, the sense of time is polychronic. That means we are understanding various parameters at the same time, and relationships are more important. So if someone is going to a place but they stop because there is something happening with a person, or they found someone, they will prioritize their relationship towards being perfectly on time. But this is something that should be taken to the workplace also, because relationships in the corporate world also are important. They're important everywhere, but we need to understand the horizontal type of influence. And how, when you are polychronic, maybe they arrive a little bit later, but then they will stay later if needed. They're not going to say this is the moment. If something is important, they will prioritize it in a different way. So I think this is one of the main things when you adapt to another culture, to live in another culture, that maybe something for you is normal and for them is not.
Wow, so I'm laughing because it happens so much here in this village that I live in Andalusia, and this culture is more preserved here than maybe north of Spain. But when somebody pulls by a neighbor in the car and starts talking through the window of the car, and in the middle of the street, there will be 5 cars waiting for them to finish the conversation, and nobody honks. Nobody.
They are having a conversation. That's important.
Yeah, if they are local, if they're not tourists, if they're not from another place, nobody honks until they finish the conversation, and they continue, and the road is clear again. And when I first got here, it was crazy. It was like, how come these people are so relaxed the only thing that's happening is just these two neighbors meet on the street and they have to stop the traffic for a little conversation. And for me, that was like, it's impossible. Why would I stop the traffic? Why would this conversation be so important that I have to stop 5 cars? But for them, it's like, of course, relationship. This is my neighbor. I want to ask how it is. and I read an article about the north of Europe, like Scandinavian countries specifically, that how come they're so efficient? And they usually had more equilibrium between men and women. And they gave a very simple explanation. When it's cold and you have to prepare for a long winter, you have to collaborate and gather all the supplies and build the structures and collect all the food. You have to be very calculated, and you need to involve the entire community in the agricultural tasks, and you have a deadline. So the winter is coming.
The winter is coming.
Yeah, you're going to have 6 months of cold. You have to prepare and collect the fruits, collect the animals, collect the grain, collect everything, and weave the sweaters and everything. You have to be linear. You have to be functional. You have to be effective, because it's a matter of life or death. If you're not going to have enough food that will last 6 months of winter and enough clothes and enough animals, you will not survive. So for them, it was like the weather was dictating how they behave with each other and how they organize with each other. While in the south or in the center, in also tropical countries, it's not a matter of life or death anymore. So you can, and of course it's too hot in the middle of the day to do anything, so you rest with the siesta. And in Spain, it's even worse because the clock is wrong. And
I know.
because I should be in England and Portugal time zone, but we're in Europe time zone. So it's already like the middle of the day, the hottest time of the day is not 12, it's 2 p.m. And it's all different. And you get used to this climate and cycle of the day and night, and it creates the culture, it creates your rhythm of life, it creates how you deal with other people and when do you do it. Like you could see people taking their kids to dinner at 10 p.m. Then still having fun at midnight, and the kids
it's summer. The kids, because it's the only moment in which you can be in the street because the day was so hot.
Yeah, and it's only the sunset is only at, like the last sun rays in only 10 p.m. and then it's like, okay. So it changes the culture. It changes how your brain works, and like with the light waves and the melatonin and everything, it changes the culture.
Yeah, I also think that in the Mediterranean there is a lot of oral culture, like speaking and I mean, it's survival also. We depend a lot on our networks, so keeping the conversation is central. Asking our neighbor how he is central to, I mean, not to the survival of the person in the car with you, but it is important because it's part of creating those networks which are your safety. And many of the plans and many of the businesses are not done in the business place, they're done on the bar after. And so those conversations are really important in more polychronic cultures, where in the north you're respecting time, but in the Mediterranean you're respecting people and the rhythms.
Maybe this is also related to there were so many empires that in different times conquered this region, and they took populations from one country to another country, and slaves and people inside the empire traveled around. So there was a lot of, before the internet, there was lots of cultural exchange, there are lots of languages, there are lots of people from different places trading with each other. Whether if the empire was stable, then they could travel maybe safely, but if the empires were rivaling each other, then there was like more violent replacement of people. And then if
the Roman Empire,
Roman, Ottoman,
Ottomans,
Mongol,
yeah.
What else before that was, I forgot, but there were like 3 or 4 big ones. And then with the rise of maybe the Catholic Church as a big power in Europe also, that's a different type of governments, and the Roman Empire had different stages.
There were trade routes.
Yeah, so imagine that if your region is being conquered by different rulers in different centuries with different languages and different coins and different emperors and different, the only thing that's stable is the people around you. They don't change so much. Just the outer layer of governance and maybe the formal language and the coin has a different face of a different emperor. But what doesn't change is the people around you. Like the people of Italy are Italians. It doesn't matter if it was under Roman Empire or under. They're still Italians. Let's say they're still.
Well, they were not Italians because Italy did not exist, but yeah.
So
they were in the same place. They were geographically, yeah.
Yeah, they were the same people in different names. Now they're Romans. Now they're Italians. Eventually, the people are the people. You put your value on connections instead of labels.
I understand there's been so much migration and different cultures and different religions together. So you need to talk to the people because that is your power, capacity of influence and your networks. It's a different culture and there are things in every culture that we want to see and benefit from learning about. Let's make something difficult. So we talk love, we talk Mediterranean and the time. How do we put that together?
Well, I can only talk from my experience. This is why I'm so much involved in Buddhism for the last almost 14 years. Is that if you look at humanity, or at least Asia, Europe, and Africa are the biggest continents that are actually bordering with each other and had trade with each other and influenced each other in different empires, religions, races, immigration. These are all stories and labels. You're from Africa, you're from Europe, you're Jewish, you're Muslim, you're Christian, you're Protestant, you're Catholic, but I'm my family is 11 centuries living in Germany versus my family is just two generations living in Germany. All these labels and stories that we tell each other, and sometimes it's good because we can learn from each other and experience different flavors of life because, especially with food. Today I want to go to a Pakistani restaurant because I want to experience something else. With food is easier, but with politics is different because, suddenly when you talk about Pakistani immigrants in UK, suddenly it's so much different, right? It's a different sentiment. So what I like about Buddhism is that with the practice of meditation and analyzing reality, you drop the labels, you drop the stories, you drop the nations, the religion, and you're left with only the bare necessities of like human. Sometimes not even man and woman, just human, animal, and then you can also break it down to a living being. It doesn't matter if it's, you break down all the stories, all the labels, and all these inclinations that are causing us to attach to a specific country or a specific religion, and to try to disengage from more specific countries and specific tradition, because it teaches you that when you want to hold something that is too close to you and never let it go, it's a form of attachment to keeping a stale state, something that doesn't ever change, which it's not natural. Something that doesn't change anymore is dead, right? Life is changing, life is moving. So when you hold to something like my identity, my religion, my country is suffering because you cannot hold it, it will change anyway. And when you try to push something away, it's also suffering because you put so much energy in pushing something away from affecting you, touching you, hitting you, being next to you, that you push. It's also suffering because you're fighting somebody else or something else or some idea. So trying to keep something and trying to push away something, both are forms of suffering. You put a lot of energy to fight the natural cause of things that is cyclical and is changing all the time, and you cannot keep forever. And all the big empires fell, and our current religions, they didn't exist a few thousand years ago because we were all pagan and shamanistic cultures before the main religions anyway. So if we put this in perspective, then we can find, I think, more peace. Because we can honor different people, different languages, different races, we can accept them, we can understand where we all came from, was a different world a few thousand years ago, And because of what happened, we are more separated, but we can reverse it and we can change it. And then maybe we have more love and more trust that we are not so different. Start with people, and then maybe we go to animals, because this is more difficult, but at least with people.
I'm thinking of love and time, because we've been talking about those things in this conversation. And I would say that time, a lot of time without love, and I don't mean without an object of love, but what we are referring to today, without feeling love, is a kind of emptiness. That's what I think. Love and time, over time, let's say over time, that would be attachment. But it doesn't have to be, I mean, belonging, say that when you feel that you love someone more over a period of time, or you can feel that love over time because you settle in yourself. And without the time, love without time is that moment when you have so much intensity that you lose a sense of time, that you're lost, either in that sense of love or in that love for someone, and the time has disappeared, similar to an altered state of consciousness, a transpersonal state. That would be, for me, the love without time.
But also you can't keep that. You
The
can't
transpersonal state, yes, but if you go to a supermarket, then it might be a bit difficult, no?
Yeah, no, I mean, you cannot keep a transcendental state forever.
Yeah.
And you cannot keep, like, time will continue even if you don't notice it.
Yeah.
I don't think time is an actual thing, especially in quantum physics. It doesn't exist, but we talk about it because we feel it. I think what is missing, that came from talking about it, and I was muting myself because the church bells was so strong, so it got like a reminder of time and religion.
Yeah.
So I think what we're missing in our culture, which is also related to cyclical time, is the sense of feminine divinity, not God as a male figure. Because before the main religions, there were polytheistic religions. And each of them had one male figure God and one female figure God. It was a family. We had two parents, not just one, father, right? We say Father God and Mother Earth. So a few thousand years ago, I don't know why, there was a divorce between the Father God and the Mother Earth. Usually the feminine was assigned to the earth and the father male element was assigned to the sun or to the sky. In some cultures it's reversed, but it's okay. And a few thousand years ago, there was a disconnect between the male divine aspect and the female divine aspect, and the female was shut away in some cage, or some underground dark layer. And we see it in our culture. We see it in our, in feminism. We see it in different religions that are more suppressing of women. We suppress sexuality. We don't look at nature as our home. We look at it as something that we exploit. And we have a more masculine way of creating society, technology, capitalism, the race to the stars in rockets that looks like a phallus to impregnate Mars. And it's literally like this, and maybe this is why we feel disconnected and lonely, and we don't trust and we don't feel the love, because our parents are separated. We should bring them back together and have Father God male and Father Goddess female, or masculine, feminine, that we feel that we are children of love that is possible between two polarities, like a biological creation is created with an egg and the sperm. So in our philosophical, spiritual, cultural, we are missing this union again, like the yin and yang or Shiva Shakti in different cultures. And once we feel that we are whole again, because our two parents are back together talking, and the divorce is over, and then they can find peace with each other, and it's not just male dominance, then maybe they can heal the relationships and it will trickle down on us So and I'm kind of saying it to rebel against the modern religions, because I'm not so much in favor of the modern religions because of this, because it cut down the feminine aspect and from the masculine, and it shuts down and it suppresses a lot of things that are natural. And you have these stories in Babylon and in Persia and in the North Scandinavian traditions, and of course in India. Some cultures still keep these stories, but most of us in the Western world are not. And maybe this is why we cannot access it so easily.
I'd like to say something about that, why we disconnected from the goddess. Agriculture changed the way in which power was happening. So when we were tribes, we'd be procreating between each other. There were not couples as such. So the children were children of the tribes, and these tribes would be moving in a different way. But when the land became a little bit of scarcity, provokes that my land is from here to here, I'm going to cultivate it, inheritance matters. And then men realize that they need certainty of paternity. So they have to pass the land to their children. And that creates a control of the sexuality of the woman. So now you are going to have sex with me, you're my partner. This is the way we start. So it begins like this, as a survival mechanism, because I'm not going to say it's good or bad, it's what they needed to do. And then at the same time, the more you have land and other people have also land, this is when war can begin. So in the Bronze Age, Iron Age societies, they start to reward more the discipline. All that you say about what you have said about the buildings, the conquest, and the male warrior. The elites were replacing their mother cults. Yeah. And then is when women started from being free to become property. In some cultures and countries, women still have property today. We have not overcome that stage yet. So then having cities, that means we need centralized, we need laws, we need armies, we need a king, we need a number of things that the structures are being built, that the disconnection with the goddess, because we're not going to revere a female figure. The females are here to have our children and they have importance at a different level, but they are under control in a way that they were not before. Yeah. However, I see that what I find, and I hope this will be the next book I want to do, is about how the goddess find a way to prevail somehow, because they were not erased, they were repurposed. Yes. So they, in the Mediterranean, many times with Christians, they become a different thing. So we have the Virgin Mary. But do we have one Virgin Mary? No, we have tons of Virgin Marys. So the Mary of the Mary of the Pains, the Mary of the whatever, the Mary of the Sea. And this is like the Greek and Roman pantheon. We still have this pantheon. Yes. The only thing is that this Virgin Mary has been desexualized, because sex is bad, and so it's removed from women, and is presented like having the child without any intervention other than the divine intervention, but it's still a powerful woman that people would pray to. So that is how the goddess has remained, and we have all these images. And now the third wave, the next wave, is the time in which we are started to reconnect with that.
When you talk about the Bronze Age, my idea, because I was researching this a lot a few years ago, of what happened, what shifted between polytheistic cultures to monoteistics, and maybe this can conclude our conversation, because I find myself going back to the same point. So maybe this is the last. I'm going back to the same point. In the Bronze Age collapse, there was a long period of drought in the Middle East and especially in the Mediterranean side, and sometimes there was also this accumulation of droughts, earthquakes, maybe the eruption of one volcano in Greece. I don't remember if it was exactly the same period, but close to it, that people still remember. And I think it was thought as losing trust in Mother Nature. If Mother Nature can be so vengeful and, eliminate rain, earthquakes, destructions, volcano, and eliminating maybe a city next to the volcano, then people kind of lost trust in nature. And this is also the beginning of science, because science will control nature. We will find a way to find a mechanism to predict cycles, to control the weather, to create, shields and fortify the structure so the earthquake cannot break it. All this masculine science of dissecting things to the smallest bits, so we know how they're made of and what they build, the building stones of things, so we can deconstruct and build again and create tools. I think it started somewhere over there when people lost trust in Mother Nature, because it was a long period of disasters, and they thought, well, wait, okay, let's go to the other side. Let's try to control nature, to tame nature. And we have these stories in all cultures of, the god killing the beast, the whale or the serpent, and all these types of narratives about the female figure goddess going to the hell, and the god is like still in heaven, because biologically women had to go through periods of having a period and being pregnant. They were disabled in some sense, in a cyclical way, and when culture shifted for a more masculine approach, it seemed like weakness. It seems like something that you can trust, because if you need to defend yourself, you need to have men that don't get a period once a month, and they can fight every day. They don't get pregnant. So
that's why we have different rhythms.
Exactly, yeah. And they can fight every day, because fighting was necessary to survive, because of territory and everything, and because of the drought created these tribes and groups of people trying to conquer one another in order to get resources and food, because there was nothing. There was a period of, so suddenly you need to have force and men and warriors, and they can't get raped and pregnant when the other army captures your people. And the focus shifted to this because of, like you said, necessity. This was the reality. But we got stuck there.
Yeah.
And I think this is why I go back to the sense of trust. If we can find a sense of trust that the universe is good, that the planet is good, that the karma, faith, destiny is eventually good, that it's all a cycle, that we can love the planet and in an ecological way again, we can love society, humanity again, we can love our history and mistakes, we can love our future, and we can love the present moment, and have trust that everything that's happening is okay.
It's very much okay, yeah.
Yes, and I mean, we can fix a lot of things, we need to fix a lot of things, but it's okay, and it's for a good purpose, and or at least for a good meaning, for us to grow and to learn and to evolve. And we don't hold this grudge and hate like men versus women or right wing versus left wing. And we just say that, okay, this was a part of humanity where we needed that. It's over. Now we need this. It's going to be over. And then we're going to need something else. It's going to be over. And we don't hold so tight to these modes of living, which are ancient, and we need to...
Yeah, we need to progress a little bit more from there.
People want to go to Mars and conquer planets, and they can't solve things that happened 3,000 years ago. So how can you do that?
I think that
trust, love and trust. I think
we took in love as ownership in those times, but this has been until very recently, and still sometimes prevails, like the you or mine, and the way as even in the 40s, 30s, 20s. It was not expected that you love your partner. You just marry for survival. Like in the far west, I have a cow, I have a ranch, would you marry me and help me with a cow? So it's not expected romantic love, it's not expected that you have feelings for your partner. And this is what is relatively new. And still we're not still there. Because
maybe this is how the feminine element is going back again, to have this.
To reconnect with the divine feminine is to just stop asking love and start letting it become just a field where two nervous systems of two people can feel alive and evolve together and rest together while they feel alive. So for me, that's what goddess means. It's a culture of love.
And this is exactly like ego is separated, and when the ego is not separated, it's connected then.
Yeah.
It's threatening a lot of people of like, what will happen to me if I'm connected with another person? I will lose myself. No, you don't lose yourself. You just connect to a bigger relation.
Yeah, but they say that a lot. I'm losing myself. And I go, what are you? Are you losing yourself? Oh, really? What are you? Anyway, Moran, and before we finish, I want to ask you, so what do you do? How do you work with someone who comes to you with a love-related problem?
It's always related. I mean, it's like a Freudian. It's always related to the relationship that you nurtured from your father and mother, or absence of them. There's always some inherited feeling, story, trauma that I work with, because when I work with energies, in the traditional sense, in shamanic sense, there's always a masculine and feminine energies that we inherit. Like the DNA, we inherit both sides. So we inherit either if it's transgenerational or direct from grandparents, uncles, aunties, mother, father. It's always about that. Even if the let's say the main issue that you have, or the main block or the main trigger, is with a sibling, you are both inherited of the same mother and father anyway. So I work a lot with this balance of masculine and feminine energies in the body, and in this familiar aspect, and in the energetic aspect of what you inherited from your father and mother lineages. And then we work on either releasing stuff that you don't need, or bringing back stuff that was taken from you in an energetic, emotional sense, and harmonizing it back again.
Nice.
So let's say, if you want to disconnect from a negative experience of your father when you were 5-year-old, it doesn't mean that you're going to disconnect with your father and never talk with him again in your life. You're just going to disconnect from this story, or from this aspect, or from this energetic imprint. Or if you are estranged from your mother because you don't speak to each other for the last 5 years because you have a big argument, then you have to let go of that aspect of her, so you can accept who she is now, and not cling and attach to that story. And when we work energetically with guided imagination, with shamanic journey, with energies, even with simple things like Ho'oponopono, we dissolve these structures of ego, or these frozen energies of trauma or memories, and we can say, this happened in the past, it does no longer control me, I want to go from here to a different situation. And eventually what happens is that you have to break down some constellation that doesn't work anymore, and create a new constellation that will work with the same people, as long as they are still alive, and sometimes even after they're passed away. But I think the most important thing is that you're not separated. Even if you cut certain constellations, you have to align it and harmonize it with different other constellations that are beneficial, because you will not be hanging up in the air like lonely energetically, without parents, without friends, without history.
And you do that individually, you do that collectively. How does it work?
Usually individually, because then you have to go deep into the story and the memories and emotions. But in group settings, it's just more, everybody can do their own work in a group setting, but then I cannot go into the specific story of each person myself.
Yeah.
Eventually, it's the same work.
I like to do it in groups. I can do individual, but I have a lot for groups. So when a state of love is just like a guided space where I can help people as a collective. In the moment, we're not thinking on the stories. It's very different. So I think it's so complementary actually, because you are going individually to the stories, and what we are doing is like clearing the energy in the group and help people nervous system change into or shift into safety and to connection with different techniques, from breathing to gentle voice work, also exercises that can be relational with each other, and movement. There's a set of activities over there, so people would relax, co-regulate, and feel the connection, and also the connection to themselves. And my role would be to create the conditions where this love becomes possible inside their body and give them tools to be able to replicate it when out of the session.
Well, you know what it sounds like to me?
I like to know what it sounds like to you.
When you create these feelings with them and they see that it's real and it's possible, then they can trust it.
Well, it's been very interesting because
they can trust
yeah,
that love exists because they feel it with the group setting.
exactly. Exactly. What interesting anecdote is, I mean, for me, if it was the Hindu tradition, they would call it open your heart, open your fourth chakra. But I don't think you can try to open the fourth chakra to people with an scalpel. So it's all very gentle, nothing like get in an ecstasy and feel this and then go home and what do I do now?
Yes.
So it's more like super gentle. So you know in every moment what you're doing. So you have the tools, and then when you go home, you can continue practicing it and make it a practice. Make love a practice. But I did have people, a person in the recent workshop saying, oh, I realized I don't feel appropriate. I realized I was trying to find love out there, but now I'm realizing in my body that my body doesn't admit it. And I thought, well, that's such a realization, because I'm not trying that you're going to feel that love in the session automatically, but maybe you get the insight of what is it that you notice that you didn't notice before that you are going to work on it later. Other people have feeling that expansion and it's physical. So it's not a matter of belief. It's nothing to do with belief. It's when there's the expansion on the chest that is muscular when this someone is being very defensive, for example, and there is tension. And then when they start doing a number of activities and exercise and we share it, they actually felt, oh, what is this? This is magic. I didn't believe in this. And I like the belief because it's not a matter of belief.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with belief. There are muscles here that are associated with your nerves and the nervous system. When that defensiveness is relaxed, your chest is going to expand, your shoulders drop, and you're going to feel different. And again, I don't mind believe, not believe. Just you give it a go and notice, because it's about noticing. So we have talked for an hour.
More
More than an hour. Okay, I think we can stop it here.
Yeah.
And
I'm going back to the same point, so it's okay to
because we don't have the sense of linear time.
Yes.
That's why. Moran, it's been a
Well,
pleasure.
it would be really interesting to talk about all these other stuff like somatic exercises and
Yeah.
and I'm very fascinated with the goddess tradition and what happened like in history and archaeology. I think I told you about this book, the story of the goddess. It's like really tracking with archaeology and stuff what happened since before.
When God was a woman.
I will send you the title, and
Okay.
maybe it's a different conversation we can make in the future.
Okay, so I think we say bye for now to whoever is at the other side. And maybe we'll come back and you'll see us again.